You can be surrounded by voices and still be alone in the worst way, unsteady, distracted, and dependent on constant noise to avoid meeting yourself. Or you can be physically alone and finally begin to recover your mind. That is the difference this video is about. Not loneliness as a wound to dramatize, not isolation as a badge of superiority, but solitude as a disciplined space where your attention, your character, and your self-command are tested. Rule 1. Let solitude tell you the truth. When the messages stop, when the room gets quiet, when the city outside your window keeps moving, and nobody is asking for your reply, what appears? Restlessness, grief, anger, the urge to reach for your phone just to prove you are still connected? Do not treat that discomfort as proof that you are broken. Treat it as evidence. Solitude removes the cover that distraction lays over your habits. Hierocles is the right first guide here because his way of thinking keeps the inward life tied to duty. He is useful, not because he praises withdrawal, but because he reminds us to understand where we stand in relation to others. If quiet makes you see how often you people please, over-explain, or chase approval, that is not failure, that is instruction. The Citadel gates are closing, and now you can see what has been slipping in with the crowd. The modern version is simple. You sit in a parked car after a long workday. The notifications are still arriving. You feel the itch to answer, post, explain, or scroll. Yet this is the exact moment to pause. Ask, what emotion am I trying not to feel? What demand am I trying not to face? Solitude becomes powerful when it stops being empty time and starts being honest time. Remember this image. The room goes silent and the mask does not. That is where the work begins. Rule 2. Do not confuse quiet with escape. A person can cancel plans, avoid calls, and hide behind the language of self-care while secretly running from obligation. That is not solitude. That is evasion with better branding. Seneca is especially useful here because he understood both the value of retreat and the danger of using it badly. Restorative quiet clears the mind so that you return with better judgment. But if your alone time is only a shelter from criticism, conflict, or responsibility, then it is not making you stronger. It is making you smaller. The goal is not to disappear from people. The goal is to stop being ruled by their noise. Look at the modern pressure points. The office is tense. Someone speaks to you sharply in a meeting. You leave, sit alone, and feel the urge to replay the exchange for an hour. Or you get home after a crowded day and shut the world out completely, not because you are restoring yourself, but because you want no one to ask anything of you. Solitude becomes mature when it is chosen with purpose. Resentful withdrawal is just avoidance wearing a dark cloak. Here is the Stoic test. If your quiet time makes you more able to answer hard messages, have a difficult conversation, and keep your promises, it is serving you. If it makes you less reachable, less useful, and more self-pitying, it is serving your fear. Seneca's practical spirit points us toward this distinction again and again. Time is too valuable to spend hiding from reality. Use a simple phrase to remember this rule. The door to the room should open back toward the world. Solitude is a chamber for recovery, not a cave for surrender. Rule 3. Train your attention before you trust your mood. Many people wait to feel ready before they do anything difficult. They wait to feel motivated before they study. They wait to feel calm before they set a boundary. They wait to feel lonely enough before they admit they need structure. Solitude teaches the opposite lesson. Attention comes first, and mood follows later. When you are alone, your attention either gathers or leaks. That is the whole game. If you spend the hour half working, half scrolling, half listening to music, and half checking who replied, you have not been alone in any meaningful sense. You have merely been divided. The quiet was there, but your mind was still being pulled by a dozen tiny hooks. Musonius Rufus fits this lesson because his teaching, as reported by others, is plain and practical. He is valuable here because he emphasizes training, simplicity, and useful habits. Solitude is not a decorative mood. It is a practice space, a room, a chair, a notebook, a fixed time, no performance, no audience, no need to look impressive. Think of a gym at night after the crowd is gone. The weights are still there, the mirror is still there, but now the question is not whether people are watching. The question is whether you will put in clean effort. Solitude works the same way. It strips away the social theater that often props up your discipline. That can be uncomfortable. It can also be freeing. Try this. Spend 10 minutes alone with one task only. Read one page slowly. Write one clear page. Walk without headphones and notice where your mind keeps fleeing. Then bring it back again and again. That act of returning is the rep. The value is not in a perfect mood. The value is in proving you can direct yourself. Remember the image, a lantern held steady in a windless hall. Rule 4. Use solitude to see your patterns. In a crowd, many of your habits stay hidden because the room keeps moving. You laugh when others laugh. You agree when agreement is easier. You delay a decision because noise makes delay feel normal. But in solitude, your patterns start speaking. This is where self-examination becomes serious. You start noticing how often you reach for distraction after criticism. You notice that certain people leave you drained because you spend every interaction performing. You notice that your first impulse after tension is not reflection but retaliation, not patience but explanation. The quiet makes these habits visible. It does not create them. It reveals them. Seneca gives this kind of inward work a clear edge. His writing is often practical about the use of time and the discipline of examining oneself before the day disappears. That is the posture to take here. Do not ask, how do I feel about being alone? Ask, what does my behavior become when no one is shaping it for me? That is a far more useful question. Imagine a late-night kitchen after everyone else is asleep. The sink is full, the room is dim, and your thoughts finally stop racing just enough for you to hear them. This is where you can see the small evasions, the way you overspend to soothe yourself, over-explain to avoid rejection, or keep one more tab open because silence feels too direct. These are not moral disasters. They are signals. Use solitude as a mirror, not a mattress. A mirror shows what needs care. A mattress encourages sinking. The difference matters. If you leave your alone time with one clear truth about yourself, then the silence has done its job. Hold this phrase. In the quiet, your habits lose their costume. Rule 5. Return to people with more care. Hierocles is especially important here because his way of thinking about our relations insists that we are not complete in private. We are formed for connection, duty, and concern. Solitude is not the final destination. It is the place where you recover enough order to re-enter human life without spilling chaos everywhere. This matters because many people think a quiet life means a smaller life. They imagine that if they stop answering everyone instantly, they are becoming cold. Not necessarily. Sometimes the opposite is true. A steadier inner life makes your outer conduct less reactive. You listen better. You interrupt less. You stop using other people as a mirror for your insecurity. You become more present because you are no longer trying to extract validation from every conversation. Picture the return from a quiet walk into a crowded dinner table. Before, you might enter needing attention, ready to defend yourself, eager to impress. After disciplined solitude, you enter with less hunger and more steadiness. That changes the room. It changes how you answer your partner, your child, your colleague, or the stranger who tests your patience in traffic. Self-command is not only private, it is social. The practical test is simple. Does your solitude make you easier to live with? Does it help you become less defensive, less needy, less performative? If yes, then it is doing Stoic work. If no, then you are using quiet as a way to withdraw from the very duties that shape character. Do not mistake inward order for indifference. Hierocles would have us remember that the point is not to escape the circle of concern, but to stand inside it more firmly. Solitude gives you the breath to do that. Remember this phrase, go inward to return outward with strength. Rule 6. Make quiet time physically useful. A still room does not automatically produce a strong mind. You can sit alone for hours and become weaker if all you do is drift. Solitude becomes fruitful when it has structure, a task, a rhythm, a standard. Musonius Rufus is the fitting voice here because his practical teaching, as preserved by later report, treats philosophy as training for life, not decoration for the mind. That means your alone time should include actions that build steadiness. Clean the room, walk without your phone, prepare simple food, read slowly and take notes, write one honest page, do one hard thing on purpose, even if it is small. Quiet should not be passive, it should be constructive. This is especially important for people who feel lonely because the mind, left untrained, starts manufacturing stories. It says, no one cares. It says, you are behind. You should check your messages again. But if your hands are occupied with work that matters, the mind is less likely to sink into vague self-pity. Physical order helps mental order. Think of an empty workshop after the noise is gone. Nothing is happening by accident. The tools are laid out. The bench is cleared. The fire is low but steady. That is the model. Your solitude can be like that, a place where you restore the instrument rather than neglect it. The rule is simple. If your alone time cannot produce one visible act of order, it is too vague. If it leaves you stronger, cleaner, and more prepared to re-enter the day, it is doing its job. Discipline does not always roar. Sometimes it quietly folds the shirt, closes the tab, and begins. Hold this image. Rule 7. Do not let loneliness become a story. Feeling alone is real, but if you turn that feeling into an identity, it will start governing your choices. You will begin to interpret every quiet moment as abandonment. Every delayed reply will feel like rejection. Every empty evening will become a verdict about your worth. That is where the Stoic discipline matters. Solitude is not the same as being unloved, and loneliness is not the same as being powerless. The feeling may be present, but it does not get to write the whole account of your life. You can acknowledge it without obeying it. Seneca helps here, because his approach to friendship and time keeps us from dramatizing each passing impression. He reminds us, in effect, to look at what is happening without surrendering judgment to it. That is the key in lonely hours. Do not make conclusions too quickly. Do not convert a mood into a prophecy. A quiet night is not an oracle. Modern life makes this hard. Social media turns other people's highlights into a silent accusation. You see a gathering you were not invited to. You see a couple. You see a room full of faces. Then you sit with your own silence and decide something must be wrong with you. But the Stoic response is firmer. Your worth is not measured by your current level of digital visibility. Use a sentence like a handrail. This is a feeling, not a verdict. Say it slowly. Write it down if you need to. Then do one ordinary act of order. Make tea. Finish one task. Step outside. Loneliness gets stronger when it is fed with narrative. It weakens when it is met with plain reality. Remember this image. The stone passes overhead, but the gate remains. Rule 8. Practice deliberate smallness. Not self-contempt, not deprivation for its own sake. Simplicity. The less your mind is spread across unnecessary comforts, the more it can settle into command. Solitude becomes clearer when your life is not full of constant excess. Musonius Rufus belongs here again because his practical outlook favors simple living and training through ordinary conditions. A person who needs perfect surroundings to be calm has not yet learned calm, but a person who can read, think, eat, rest, and work in plain conditions has become harder to disturb. That is real strength. This applies directly to the lonely and overstimulated. Sometimes loneliness is intensified by excess. Too many inputs, too much noise, too many late nights, too many small indulgences that leave you more restless than restored. Simplicity does not solve every problem, but it removes some of the static. It makes solitude easier to inhabit because there is less clutter competing for your attention. Try stripping one unnecessary layer from the evening. Leave the phone in another room. Drink water before anything else. Sit with one lamp instead of 5 screens. Go for a walk without listening to anything. Eat a simple meal without turning it into a ceremony. These are not grand gestures. They are acts of command. They teach the body to stop demanding constant entertainment. Think of a bronze shield polished until it reflects one clean line of light. It is not ornate, it is effective. That is the model. Your quiet life does not need to be impressive. It needs to be workable. Use this rule when the mind becomes noisy. Simplify the room, and the room will simplify the mind. Rule 9. Practice a private rehearsal before conflict. One of the best uses of solitude is to prevent your first emotional impulse from becoming your public behavior. Before you answer the message, before you walk into the meeting, before you confront the person who crossed the line, rehearse the better response in private. Seneca is useful here because his writing often points toward preparation, self-command, and the discipline of not being ruled by sudden impulse. The point is not to become artificial. The point is to become deliberate. Solitude gives you a place to pause long enough to choose your standard before the moment chooses it for you. This is very practical. Someone disrespects you, your chest tightens, your mind starts drafting a sharp reply. You go silent, but the silence is not calm yet. It is only potential. In that moment, step away if you can, breathe, name the situation, Ask what outcome you actually want. Do you want victory or do you want clarity? Do you want the last word or do you want self-respect? Those are not the same thing. The rehearsal might be as simple as this: speak once, clearly, and stop. Or do not answer while angry. Or I can be firm without becoming theatrical. Solitude lets you practice those lines before the heat of the room rises. When the moment arrives, your body remembers what your mind has already settled. Picture an armor room before a campaign. The shield is checked. The strap is tightened. Nothing is rushed. That is how private preparation works. It does not remove conflict. It removes chaos. Remember this phrase: choose your response in the quiet, not in the collision. Rule 10. Leave solitude better than you entered it. This is the final test. Not whether you enjoyed the silence, not whether you escaped the world for a while. The real question is whether your time alone made you more steady, more useful, and more willing to meet life with clean hands. Hierocles brings the episode home here. His thinking keeps the circle of concern open. We do not become better human beings by refusing people. We become better by learning how to care without collapsing, how to stay inwardly ordered without becoming inwardly closed. Solitude should help you do that. It should prepare you to rejoin your responsibilities with greater patience and less neediness. Seneca adds the warning that time is short and should not be wasted on empty retreat. Let quiet restore you, but do not hide in it. Musonius Rufus reminds you that philosophy is proven in practice, so let your solitude produce simple acts of discipline that others can feel when you return. A calmer voice, a firmer boundary, a cleaner decision, a less reactive mind. So end your solitude with one action. Send the honest message. Tidy the space. Make the call. Begin the task. Step back into the room with intention. Not as someone desperate for approval, not as someone pretending not to need anyone, as someone who has been alone long enough to remember what matters. That is the hidden power of solitude. It is not escape from life. It is the sharpening of the self that must live it. Take this image with you. The Citadel gate opens, and the man who leaves it does not drift.